Hello. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Should I be able to see you? Because I can't. I can only see
Oh,
me.
let me see if I can check this by looking on else. Log into Facebook the other way. Make sure that I can see you, and it says that you're in the video.
Oh, okay, well, that's all right then.
Oh, it says you're added. So I'm just going to have a little check this way while we give people the chance to come in. I'm hoping I'll be able to see it from another portal. Have a look. Yes, we're both there.
Great. Okay, well, it's strange because I can't see you, but I'm not going to fiddle about with anything my end because I might end up disappearing again.
Yeah, so we're both.
Oh, hang on. Would you like to? Oh, I think I have to send a request to see your video. Okay, so I've sent you a request. Maybe that's how we do it.
I think, yeah. It's doing approve. Ah, yes. Okay. See, we're rolling.
There we go.
Are you able to see me now?
Not yet. No, I thought it might pop up. I can't yet. No.
Well, you're definitely live with me, so I'm sure people will tell us if they're not, but when I checked on the page, you were definitely live. So we'll just give it a few minutes for people to join us because we're a little bit early, but it seems to be, fingers crossed, we're both on there.
Really good. It's just technology, isn't it? When you're doing something new for the first time, it's like,
yeah, it is a little bit. It looked like it was fairly easy, but I'm not great with technology, so you never quite know what's going to happen.
Well, no, I've just been doing online tutorials with my trainee teachers because I do some freelance work still, supporting other people that want to go into the profession that I have now left. And they were supposed to be presenting evidence to me, and they kept having their screens were freezing and they were dropping in and out of the Microsoft Teams call. It was all going on there tonight. So hopefully Facebook technology will be friendlier to us than that was.
Keep our fingers crossed. It's saying that we're live, so hopefully somebody will pop on and they'll let us know. But when I looked into the Facebook, I kind of went from my laptop just to double check. It was showing both our faces, so that's good. So we'll give it a minute or two before we start.
How many people do you usually get that join you?
We had a few last week on the live. Sometimes I can't see who's actually like, because people drop in and out, so I can't always see who's there, but people quite often will then message in the chat, so I'm not sure if you'll see the chat. So if any questions come up, oh, I can see Jane is watching. Jane, can you see both of us on the screen? Give me a little heart. Yeah. I think we're all right. Jane knows what I'm like with technology, so
yeah, this is a new one on me, because normally in in Zoom and stuff, I can kind of get the response on the other end as well. But I can see Jane's comments coming up. That's nice. Thank you.
See that as well. Oh, fabulous! You get to see it going on. Yeah, it's very different from Zoom, because obviously Zoom, you can unmute people to talk, whereas obviously Facebook Live, it is all in Messenger, but I think it comes up a bit clearer, whereas I think on Zoom you have to keep clicking in and out of being able to read messages. So I think we'll start to chat slowly and then people will hopefully find us. But so we've got Jane anyway, so Jane's always there, aren't you, Jane? So
well done, Jane.
Yeah, she'll give us some feedback, I'm sure. So I'll just like you to just introduce yourself quickly, who you are and what you do.
So, my name is Melanie. I'm a sleep and stress consultant and a clinical hypnotherapist. And having been through that lovely, interesting hormonal stage of perimenopause myself, I do know that sleep disruption and emotional regulation can be quite big things. And the thing I also noticed when I went through that time was that my anxiety increased quite a lot. So at the time when it was all first happening for me, I was teaching full-time in a secondary school, and that was quite difficult, and I would experience things like brain fog, and I couldn't remember the names of the kids that I was talking to, and I knew them and I knew their faces and I could tell you what they were good at, but for some reason their names didn't come out of my mouth. And it had always been a source of real professional pride to me that I did know them and that I was good at names, and I just felt like they would think I was a silly old woman who didn't know who they were, who couldn't do my job properly anymore. So that was a really unsettling experience. And as my personal circumstances changed and my girls got into their 20s and moved out and became more independent, it was an opportunity for me to start thinking about doing something different with my career, because I'd been a teacher for over 3 decades. And I trained as a sleep consultant and a clinical hypnotherapist. And through that, obviously, I started to find solutions for me. And I've always been a great believer in, I try and test things that I recommend to other people. So I can honestly say that all of the stuff that I have learned about managing stress, improving your sleep, and getting a grip on your anxiety is all tried and tested, as well as evidence-based. So I now do that as my full-time career. And I help lots of other people, but other women in particular, who struggle with anxiety and sleep. And obviously it's not just exclusive to the menopause, but it can be peaked in that time.
I mean, obviously we've talked personally about me with sleep disturbance, which is obviously a mix of husband snoring and obviously perimenopause as well. And you did me sent me a lovely meditation which I can now listen to, because obviously initially I was putting it on my phone and my husband could hear, and it was sending him off to sleep, and then he was snoring. So I now have got myself a lovely snooze band, so it goes right over my ears and I can listen to you and I can't hear him anymore, and it's amazing. So I have to say firsthand, what you do is absolutely amazing. I will highly recommend that completely. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of different sort of techniques that you can use as well, but why do you think so many people actually, or women, struggle with insomnia during particularly
well, I think the thing that happens during the menopause obviously is the hormonal shift, which can cause those body heating episodes. And so let's just talk about that bit for starters. We're designed really to sleep better when our core temperature is lower. And if you think about humans on the sort of most basic evolutionary scale, you know, we would have been, you know, probably cave dwelling. When the sun went down, it would get cooler and we would go to sleep. But now we live in the kind of houses that we live in, and we've got, you know, sheets, duvets, blankets that insulate us very, very well. Even if we have a window open and a cool bedroom, often in the bed itself, particularly if we have a partner that we sleep in bed with, we get very hot. If you add into the mix your hormonal changes, which cause those night sweats and hotter periods through the night, that's gonna bring us all up to a level of wakefulness, which is not so helpful. So that's the one of the issues is around our body temperature that makes us wake up more.
Big one with the ladies, I think, in the group, the hot sweats and then not being able to sleep.
Yeah. So, you know, a few kind of practical things about that, because obviously you get hot, then you sweat, then you're wet and you're cold. Just have a towel by the bed. And you know, the other thing is that it's probably more helpful to have layers of bedding. So rather than sleeping with a duvet, what I do now is I have a duvet cover, which I use just like a sheet, and then I just have a couple of blankets. My husband has an extra blanket on his side. I think a lot of women really worry about how their partners are going to feel, but my experience is that most partners, if they're worth hanging on to, will realise that you're a much nicer person to be with when you sleep better. And so there are ways that you can manage it to help the both of you to sleep better. So the first one really is all about that thermoregulation of the body. As I say, layers of bedding can help. I got to the point where, in fact, I still do it. When I go away and stay in a hotel now, I always take a big cotton sarong, because I often find that hotel rooms are overheated. but I don't like not having any covers on at all, so I just use a sarong if I go somewhere other than my home and I haven't been able to manage the temperature so well. Other things I do, and this is a bit indulgent, but for me it was an absolute game changer. I have bought a mattress cover that goes on my bed, and it has a mechanism by which it pipes cool water through it, and I can set it to different temperatures. Now, unfortunately, the company that made the one that I use don't ship to the UK anymore, but there is another company that do something very, very similar. And I'm now scrabbling around in my notes because I did write it down to share it with you. And I will put that. So I was going to say I was going to put it in the chat, but I can't put it in the chat.
The end, yeah, that's fine. We can.
But what I can do is I can send it to you and you can share it.
Fine, yeah, I think that'd be quite.
Because it's not cheap. But if you think I think the one that I've seen is called a Pulsia. It's a thermo mat that goes on your bed and it puts cool water through it. You can get one that is just a single one that goes underneath one side of the bed, or you can have a double one, but it's got two separate controls so that your partner can set theirs to a different temperature to the one that you have, so you can both be comfortable. I think it's about, for the double one, it's about £500, but you can have like a 30, it's called a thermosleep. I've just found it. The single ones start at £299 and the doubles are £499. But if you divide that over the number of good nights sleep you're going to get, actually, I think you've got to look at the long game. For me, that has been really helpful to get the physical conditions of my bed as cool and comfortable as possible. But then the other thing is the emotional thing that keeps us awake, and that's the kind of anxiety and stress that often becomes perhaps more difficult or heightened during the menopause. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it is hormonal, some of it is just to do with the life change. And often, when we're in this period of our life, some of us might have elderly parents who need caring for, some of us might have children of all different ages who are going through their own challenges. And so often women in the perimenopause and the menopause period are really busy and they've got a lot of responsibility for other people. And that is the sort of thing that when you wake at night, it starts to play on a loop in your head. So learning how to quieten your mind and reduce those anxieties is also really important. And that's, there's a lot of things that you can do to help that. Meditation is one of them, focusing attention, learning how to relax. Yoga breathing is fantastic. The audio that you mentioned has got some directed attention practices on it, which help you kind of take your mind off those other things that play on that loop and keep you agitated and awake.
Well, you sort of end up in this sort of vicious cycle, really, don't you? Because if you're not sleeping, it then triggers the anxiety. It can trigger the hot flushes. But if you're having the hot flushes and obviously you've got the anxiety, you're not sleeping, so it just goes round and round. And poor sleep will really affect your menopause symptoms, won't it, at the end of the day? I mean, poor sleep for anybody has a massive impact. It can affect your brain health, because you can have that brain fog. But in menopause, when you've already got those symptoms, it's kind of magnified, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I invested in doing everything I could to physically optimize that sleep environment by getting the temperature right, also having it really, really dark. I never used to sleep with an eye mask, but I do now. And just being mindful of that sort of bedtime routine. So getting off the phone. I put my phone on grayscale as well from about 9 in the evening, because I've got adult children who don't live at home, but obviously they're off doing things, and I like sometimes to check in, or otherwise that'll be something else I'll worry about. Did they get home safely from where they've gone or something? So if they do call me and I look at my phone, it's on grayscale, so I'm not getting that hit on the blue light, which is disruptive. And I've also got a setting on my phone where I can put it on do not disturb except for their numbers. So again, I'm
Yeah.
shutting down deliberately at the end of the day,
Yeah.
cutting off that contact, allowing my brain to quieten down. So that's, you know,
Yeah.
important as
I
well.
didn't realise you could do that with certain calls actually, because I tend to put mine on silent, but then I worry about certain people like my mum being in her 80s. If she wanted to call me, would I know? So it is a little bit
Yeah.
worrying, things like that. So that's quite an interesting thing to sort of look at. But like you're saying about obviously your bedroom environment, and like for me, my husband really likes to have the blind open because he likes to see the stars. But that actually, when it's too bright, I can actually struggle, especially on a full moon. I'm really conscious of that full moon and it keeps me awake. But I sleep on the side where the window is, so it's been a little bit of a battle between us. But yeah, we kind of have it down a lot further now. So because that was impacting my sleep as well as the snoring.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. And I have even with you know, a digital clock light, I've got so talking about clocks and things as well, that's a whole other thing. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I have mine so that I can't see the digital clock numbers on my side of the bed, but my husband's you can. But even the lights from his digital clock over his side of the bed were irritating me to the point where that's when I started wearing my sleep mask.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be really mindful of all those things that perhaps in your younger days we weren't so sensitive to, but we're you know, we're delicate ladies. Like, you know, do you remember the story of the princess and the pea
Yeah.
when you were a little girl? You know, that fairy story, and the conditions for sleep had to be absolutely perfect for her. And I think I've turned into that character really.
Yeah, I think we're all a bit like that. What about you, James? You feel a bit like Princess and the Pea at night, trying to get some sleep. You do become sensitive.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I've always been quite a light sleeper, but it's definitely heightened. And obviously, is other things going on around me as well. But I'm sure, yeah, the hormones definitely make a massive difference to that. So it's trying to make your environment really comfortable. And actually, what you were saying about obviously your bed sheets and things like that, it's being cool, isn't it? It's your nightwear as well. You know, I mean, I love my comfy pajamas, but I can't actually sleep in like the velvety pajamas anymore. They're very comfy to sit around in, but I can't sleep in them. They make me feel like I'm suffocating a little bit if I'm in under the blanket as well. I mean, there's lots of different things we can do with the environment, but sometimes we need to take it a little bit further than that. So obviously things like hypnotherapy that you do, I mean, how does that actually work to help with things like sleep and anxiety?
Okay, so the first thing I'll just explain a little bit about what hypnotherapy is, because I'm not sure that everybody on the call will be familiar with that. So hypnosis is a natural state that we all drift in and out of many times. And actually, the word hypnos is the Greek word for sleep, but you are not asleep when you are in hypnosis. It's kind of on the way to sleep or on the way out of sleep, and it's to do with the brain waves really. That when you go into hypnosis, the term that we use is trance, but there are different depths of trance, and you can actually be in quite a light trance, but you can also be much deeper, and that's when your brain waves change into a theta state. When you're in that state, you become more open to suggestions. But I want to be really clear here that through hypnosis, despite what you might have seen with, you know, the comedy magic type hypnosis shows on the television, yeah, you don't cluck like a chicken unless that's really what you do. There's actually quite a lot of research to support this, that people can't be made to do anything that is outside of their desires and their value system. But that's the natural state, and we will all drift in and out. Classic example that I think most people can relate to with being just in a little hypnotic state. It's like a daydream when you've driven somewhere that you know really well, but you get there and you go, oh, I don't remember going around that roundabout. You've been in a little hypnotic state. So what we do with hypnotherapy is we use the state of hypnosis to enable people to make positive changes to improve everything from, you know, health, happiness and habits. So that's where we come into the sleep and the anxiety. So because what happens often is when we start having disrupted sleep we get upset about it and we get worried about it. And then the more we get upset and worried, the worse it is. And then we start saying things like, I can't sleep, or I've got insomnia, or, you know, and menopause is a terrible time, and now my life's falling apart and I'm not going to be able to manage anything. I'm not the person I used to be. And we've got all this negative self-talk. So when you're working with somebody in hypnosis, you unwind that, and instead of going over all the negative stuff, you start to put in place positive suggestions. So we work on feeling calm, we work on feeling in control, we work on feeling much more able to just relax and allow our body to rest, so that even if we don't drift off into the deepest sleep that we can experience, yet we can still feel more and more rested and relaxed. And you know, when I'm working with people on an individual basis, sometimes people have, you know, particular triggers that are the things that are keeping them awake. But what we do is we tailor it so that they get the suggestions that are going to work for them. So, you know, in a group of ladies who are all struggling with sleep, there would be some suggestions that everybody's going to buy into, and that's why you can actually run group hypnosis sessions for people who all have a common aim. But if there's something, you know, more specific to the individual, then they really benefit from that one-to-one, because then I get to know them, I get to know what the suggestions are that are going to be really powerful for them, and then I tailor those suggestions for each person that I work with.
That's the thing, I suppose it is very different. Like we were saying, some people it might be they're triggered by anxiety, somebody it could be hot flushes. So I mean, with over 35 symptoms of menopause, it could be anything really that they need help for. But we've got kind of different, you've got hypnotherapy and you've also got meditation. What would you say the sort of difference is between the two, and when would you use one compared to the other, or do you sort of mix using a bit of both?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a definite overlap, but they are also different. So, you know, the kind of key thing to think about is that meditation is more of a practice that you develop on your own, and meditation is typically self-directed, and it's usually about being present in the moment, and it's usually a practice that people get better at over time. And it often involves, you know, some kind of calming activity before your mind gets into the place. So it might be preluded by a little bit of breathing, or you know, that kind of thing. So in that sense, it is similar to hypnotherapy, and often we use meditation to get people into hypnosis. So hypnotherapy uses the guided relaxation and focused attentions with the specific intention of accessing the subconscious mind, whereas meditation is more about just being present in the moment. And through the subconscious suggestions in hypnotherapy, that's where we can make specific changes. So usually with hypnotherapy, there's another goal, and the goal might be specific to release anxiety, or to move on from a difficult experience, to set up new positive habits, whereas meditation tends to be a little bit more just for its own sake, for being calmer in your mind and in that moment.
I think as well, I mean, like you say, meditation takes practice, and for many women, if you're new to all this and you're desperate for sleep, meditation is going to take longer to get the results that you want, isn't it? So, and it obviously has its place for calming you in certain situations, and if you're waking up, I mean, you can use meditation to take you back to sleep and calm you down. But if you're, you know, continually losing that sleep, then hypnotherapy is obviously kind of the option to go for over meditation. Probably, I'd say you probably need to go a little
I think that's a really key thing there. And I do, when I work with people, I do teach them sort of self-hypnosis practices, which are very similar to meditation, but we also tie that up with specific suggestions and goals for them once we know what they're going to be, to help them get that better sleep.
I mean, is there any sort of little exercises or techniques that you can recommend to people to do themselves at home?
Yeah. So the couple of things. I would imagine, Sarah, that you teach Ujjayi breath in your classes. So the ladies that are on this call might already know that one. The Ujjayi breath is a really good breath that I teach to people who are struggling with sleep. And I actually used to do this many years ago when I used to run my antenatal yoga classes. And obviously, you know, because you work with postnatal mums as well, that that's the period of time where we're often challenged for sleep because we're being woken up to look after our babies. And then we come back to menopause and we're challenged for sleep for other reasons, but we're still. So the Ujjayi breath, it gives your body that deep quality of rest, even if you're not actually asleep. And so the best case scenario is that you will actually drift off to sleep. But even if you don't drift off to sleep, you've still been able to nurture your body with that really relaxing breath. And I think taking that self-efficacy for women really empowers them, because often when everything feels out of our control in menopause, that can be very unsettling. But just feeling like there are things that you can do that you know are going to have a beneficial impact, that in itself can start to reduce some of the anxiety. So the first thing, summary is I would teach Ujjayi breath, and then also a focused attention exercise. So very, very simply, 3 things you see, 3 things you hear, and 3 things you feel. And you start off by doing that wherever you are. So let's say you're in your bedroom, you know, you've probably got woken up either because you were hot or you needed a wee, gone back to bed, and you're having trouble drifting off again. So look at around your room. Hopefully it's going to be really quite dark, because that's what we've advised. But even in the darkness, there's probably a shadow or something that you can see. So look at one of the things in your room, and then to help your eyes get tired, half close your eyes and look at it, and almost like you're trying to look through your eyelashes, and you'll feel that the eyes begin to feel tired. And then do that with 3 different things, and then allow your eyes to close, and then tune into the sounds of 3 different things, and then think about 3 different things that you can feel against your skin. So it might be you particularly focus on your feet, and then your hands, and then your head, you know, whether you're lying with your right side of the face on the pillow or the back of your head, and what does the texture of that feel like. And then once you've done that, the next thing is to help your brain make that transition from waking in the here and now into that more dreamlike state. So this is where you start to use your imagination. And I always encourage people to think about things that they find really soothing and relaxing. And the lovely thing about when you go into the dream state is that it doesn't have to be logical. So they don't necessarily have to be things that would always be together. So you could, for example, think about lying on a sun lounger and watching the sea. And then you could think about just looking at a beautiful red rose, if that's something that brings you joy. Or then you might think about looking out over a mountain view. So you just play those 3 things you see that make you feel calm in your mind, and then you do 3 things you hear. So what are soothing sounds? You know, I don't know, what sounds do you, if I said to you think of a soothing sound, what would it be for you, Sarah?
Water, maybe bird song is another one. They're all calming kind of things, aren't they? About water, it doesn't have to be the sea. Sea is obviously the one I think most people go for, don't they? But even running water, quite often you get those little fountains, don't you? It's just the sound of that water that's, I find, quite calming. And again, song, quite often with meditations, there's bird song, which I quite like. It's quite a feeling, isn't it?
And an interesting one that you can sometimes weave in here, and I appreciate you might think this sounds a bit far-fetched, but it does work. You can get people to listen to the sound of their own breathing and think how relaxing that is. And sometimes it has worked with some clients I've had, that they have got a partner who snores, and I've been able to give them the suggestion that when they can hear the sound of anyone who's deeply asleep, it makes them feel even more deeply asleep, and then they can relax too. So I get it, because I have had times where my husband was snoring and I wasn't sleeping, and all I wanted to do was stick him in the arm with my bony elbow. But I've kind of worked through that now, and yeah, when I can get into that hypnotic little headspace, actually the sound of anybody sleeping deeply kind of makes me want to join in, and it becomes a positive cue rather than an obstacle.
Yeah, that's quite clever. I mean, you're saying about tuning in to the breath. Quite often, one of the breathing things we'll do in yoga is as we're breathing, and Ujjayi breath, also known as ocean breath, it's kind of talking about listening to your breath and relating it to the sound of breathing going in and out like waves of the ocean. I think that's quite a good one to get people to connect with as well. So it's just those, the more you practice these things, I think the more they're ingrained in you, I think. But obviously meditation is something that you can obviously work on and practice yourself. Can self-hypnosis be something that women can do quite beneficial?
Yeah. And one of the kind of key things about one of the differences between just meditation and hypnosis is that when you're in a hypnotic state, there are some really key physiological things that you can feel that are like little testers you can do for yourself, and they're things that I do with clients to check the depth of their trance. So one, for example, is an eye lock, and you get into such a relaxed state that you've completely released the tiny muscles around your eyes, so that when you try to open them, they feel very, very heavy and resistant. And it's actually surprising how quickly people can reach that level of trance. And when they realize that they've done that can be quite self-empowering, because they know that they've got into the part of their mind where they can start making those positive changes. So I always take my clients into that experience so they can feel it for themselves. And then the more I work with people, I give them the opportunity to kind of learn how to access that depth of relaxation, and then also show them how they can lighten it again, open their eyes, and then go back down again. Because there's a technique that we use in hypnosis which is called refractionation, and you bring somebody up to being sort of wakeful, they open their eyes and then close their eyes down again, and the next time, each time they go down, they go into a deeper state of hypnotic relaxation. That's a really useful, empowering thing to help people who are having disrupted sleep, because then they know that even if they've woken up in the night, if you give them this suggestion and the skill, closing their eyes down again will take them even deeper into the next sleep cycle.
That's really clever, because I do a thing, I think Jane's probably done it as well, with a meditation when it's called candle gazing. And that can feel quite hypnotic when you're sitting there watching a flame. Is that similar as a self-hypnosis?
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. When you first learn anything about hypnosis and you study it to become a hypnotherapist, you learn about the founding fathers of hypnotherapy, and one of them was a man called James Edale, and he was a Victorian medical doctor. And obviously, they didn't have ordinary light; they would have had oil lamps and gas lamps. And so what he discovered was that while his patients were waiting to see him, they would be looking at the flames, and that would take them into a hypnotic state. So that's one of the things that he worked out about, what the eye fixation, it's called eye fixation, that way of getting people into trance, and looking at a flame is a really kind of tried and tested way of doing it.
Yeah, I find it really hypnotic. Jane's just saying, she has done that one. It's really good. So we've done that in class with the candles, but I feel like that with the flame generally, looking at a fireplace. But fish do that for me as well. If I sit too long, I can get really lost in that. So they're just little teasers into it, I suppose, what hypnotherapy's a little bit about. Obviously, there's far more to it. I mean, if someone's quite skeptical about hypnotherapy, what do you think would be good to help them sort of understand its benefits?
So I think just on a physical level, going down into that depth of relaxation is going to change your body chemistry. So it's like taking your nervous system out of your sympathetic fight and flight mode and putting you into parasympathetic rest and digest. So you get an effect of lowering the cortisol. So that in itself helps balance out, because in perimenopause, the disruption in the estrogen levels also cause higher levels of cortisol. So just even if you don't want to think about the positive suggestions, element of hypnosis, just on a very physical level. It's going to put your body into that much more relaxed state, which will help lower cortisol. And as soon as you start getting cortisol lower, your digestive system's going to work better, you're going to be able to sleep better, you're going to feel more emotionally regulated. So that's just the kind of very basic level. But the other thing about I would say, do you know what, I would say try it, because it's like a massage for your mind. And a lot of people who come to me for their first time, like they come out of it and they go, wow, I've never been so deeply relaxed. Now, for me, I love a massage, but it is a completely different quality of relaxation. And everybody's different, and some people will feel as if they've almost had a kind of transcendent experience and they've gone away and, you know, been somewhere very dreamy and very far away. But other people will feel really quite conscious, but just clear-headed and calm. And the key thing is to get that rapport with the person who is taking you through that experience, because I can't do hypnosis to someone. I guide them into it, because it's about their own mind, you know, being open. Yes. So, you know, I think another question that people sometimes say is, can anyone be hypnotized? So if we look at the population generally, you've got 15% at one end who are really very, very hypnotizable. You've got 15% at the other end who are really quite difficult to hypnotize, and then you've got everybody else in the middle. But it is a learned thing, and so even if you're in the end of quite difficult to hypnotize, if you actually really want to have that experience and you're open to it and you're happy to allow yourself to learn how to do it, you can all be hypnotized. The only time it's not appropriate is if you're dealing with somebody who's got, you know, a psychotic illness or something like that, because we're working with this sort of imaginative, creative part of people's minds. And if you're in a psychotic state, you're already a bit disassociated, and so it's like a step too far. So it isn't appropriate for everybody under those medical circumstances. But other than that, you know, you're certainly not going to get all of the side effects that you're going to get if you're taking sleeping medication or something like that to manage the disturbances that you might be experiencing.
So what are your offerings that you have to help women, not just obviously menopause, but if they are generally struggling with sleep and anxiety, what are the offerings that you have right now?
So I always give everybody an opportunity to have a complimentary consultation with me, which we either do in person or on Zoom. So we work out for each individual what it is that they need to work through. You know, for some people it is very, very specifically about sleep and anxiety, but often once you start talking, you know, sometimes there's been an unresolved trauma that they've coped and they've managed with for all these years, and they're almost surprised that it resurfaces. But there it is, you know, and often once we've sorted that out, the sleep comes back. So I do quite a lot of work, mostly one-to-one. I go into workplaces and I run stress management sessions. I run sleep clinic sessions to just give people some general experience of that thing I've just described about 3 things I see, 3 things I hear, 3 things I feel. We can do that in a group, as well as giving them lots of very practical information about how to curate their behaviour and their environment to set themselves up for good sleep. And I do run group sessions as well periodically, either very, very small group sessions in Brempools in Newmarket, which has just got a little room where we only have 4 people in there, or I run online sessions as well, which is a nice way for people to be able to access some hypnotherapy without having to go out. They're all nice and ready to go to bed afterwards if we do an evening session, particularly useful for sleep and relaxation. So I have a whole host of offerings, really. It just depends, you know, during the year about what time it is, what I'm offering.
Going on. And you've actually got some free meditations on your website, I believe, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. I have a free download there for sleep. There's another one for stress, and there's some ones for virtual holidays as well. So if anybody is listening and they want to go and help themselves to one of those, please do. I do also have one specifically for menopause, which is for sale because it's a very specialist one. It's only about £13.99, so it's not a huge outlay, but it's to help with hot flushes.
Yeah.
And just to give you the evidence base around that, they've done some clinical trials and discovered that hypnotherapy to relieve the troublesome symptoms of hot flushes had a positive impact. They've done a number of different studies, but it was between 70 to 74%. Now that's about the same efficacy as HRT.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. When you see it in that kind of context, it's like, wow, it's really quite impactful then. So was there anything else you wanted to add before we ask if Jane's got any questions? Or
I think I've shared pretty much everything with you. I was just going to go back actually when you were talking about relaxing things and you were talking about looking at the fish and looking at the candle flame. That would be a really good inner visualization to do if you wanted to practice that. 3 things you see, 3 things you hear, 3 things you feel. When you go into the inner world and you start thinking about the things that you imagine that you see, they would be perfect ones, wouldn't they, to do? So I just kind of wanted to take your idea and feed it back to everybody because it was such a good one, really.
Well, obviously those things that help you relax are those things you want to tune into, aren't they? So I'm just going to put it, we've got Emma as well saying the hot flush one would be helpful, so we'll put the links in for you, Emma and Jane. Is Eve, have you got any questions while we're still here and live? So I guess give people time to type.
Yeah. So while people are typing, I'll just answer a question that some people do ask: is how long does it take to get a result from a hypnotherapy session? So usually I find if somebody just wants to feel more relaxed, like you've been carrying your stress ball around and you just want to put it down, most people feel pretty good after one session. If you want to have a longer, more sustained period of benefit, then I usually suggest that people work for somewhere between 4 to 6 sessions. It depends a little bit on what your issue is, but for example, often when I work with people who come to me when they're really struggling with anxiety, I might do a GAD-7, which is a kind of medical screener to see how high they're perceiving their levels of anxiety, and the maximum score on that is 21. And I've had clients who've come to me and they've had high scores of around, actually one of them was 21, somewhere between 19 and 21. So I'm talking about 3 different clients here, and within 3 sessions they'd all gone down to a sort of a 4 or a 5 on that anxiety screener. So you can see quite tangible results relatively quickly.
Yeah, I can just sort of see the typing going on. That's all right. Emma wants to catch up. You can obviously this video is going to be on the page afterwards. It'll take a little while to upload, so if you want to watch it through and pop any questions on, Melanie's obviously in the group, so we can check back and see if there's any questions to answer. Trying to see what the full thing that Jane has said there, just about anxiety, fall asleep on the sofa but before going to bed, which doesn't help. I
was going to say, you really don't do that because that's a bit like it's a bit like eating sweets before your main meal and spoiling your appetite, because what happens during the day is that we get this this brain chemical called adenosine, and it builds up and it creates our sleep drive. And if you have had a nap or you've dozed off on the sofa, it disrupts that, and so then when you need it to keep you sleeping through the night, you've already used some of it up.
I know actually my stepson struggles with sleep, but he comes home from work, and it is because you're tired when you come home, you go through that dip, don't you, where you've been working, and he'll fall asleep but then he can't sleep at night, and it's getting out of that habit, isn't it, when you're exhausted. And the thing is, anxiety itself actually makes you feel quite exhausted, doesn't it? So I think sometimes it's looking at those trigger points and how to sort of deal with them, really. And because obviously it does when you're especially in menopause, I think you're struggling with so many different symptoms that we can feel quite exhausted anyway. it's that trying to push yourself through until bedtime and have that nice routine to help you get ready for bed, isn't it? So like you said, the room prepared, that all really helps. Some people like a nice bubble bath, but for some people it could be too warm, so it's different for everybody, isn't it? So I quite like to have aromatherapy oils there. I find those quite helpful to put them on a little while before, all the things like lavender. But obviously if, like Jane, you're suffering quite a lot with anxiety, that's going to have a massive impact on your sleep. So I think for someone like Jane, where would you be approaching first? It would be the anxiety that you'd probably look at first. Yeah.
And I would deal with that first, because I think if we try to fix, you know, if you're already feeling anxious and say, right, we're going to fix your sleep, and then it doesn't work straight away, actually that's probably going to heighten your anxiety and you're going to feel worse. So what I would do is look at some real soothing coping strategies. So one of the things that I would say to Jane, I don't know whether you can put it in the chat, but I don't know whether your anxiety is worse in the morning, because we get a natural cortisol spike in the morning. And I remember when my anxiety was its worst, I'd wake up and I would have this rush in my body, like you know, when you've been driving and you feel like someone's going to hit your car, and you go, and then I would like hold on to that anxiety and go into school and try and pretend that I was really calm and in control. And it was exhausting carrying that surge of cortisol and adrenaline with me. And then I don't know why I didn't know it, but when I discovered that we actually have a natural surge of cortisol, and it's there to wake us up, and I was like, oh, okay. And then when I just understanding that made me start to feel less worried about it. So rather than interpreting it as a sign of doom, which is what I was doing, because of course what happens when we feel these things in our body is that our mind is trying to create a level of equilibrium. So it says, oh, there must be a threat, let me look for it. And then you're primed to be looking for negative things, which obviously makes it worse. So once I realized that cortisol is actually just my body waking me up, I would literally have a little conversation with myself going, oh, that's good, that means I'm still alive, thank you. Thanks for my body for making me realize that, but it's okay now, I'm here, I've got it. You can kind of take your foot off the gas. And so there was an element of having a very deliberate, conscious conversation that started to help me make that adjustment. But if I'm really honest, the thing that really did help me was hypnotherapy. And I'm not just saying that because that's what I do, but actually the reason I do it is because it helped me so profoundly. It was like somebody turned the volume down on my anxiety. And all of the kind of cognitive behavior therapy and all of the various bits of, you know, psychology that I'd done through the years, I knew why I was anxious, but I just couldn't stop the feeling. And the hypnotherapy is the thing that really took the edge off it for me, in such a profound way that I changed my career and became a hypnotherapist.
Yeah, so you know, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? And that's why I think a lot of people in your position do what they do, because it's worked for them. I mean, you know, as you said right at the beginning of the conversation, obviously as women we've got a lot going on, so not only are we dealing with our hormones, we have got kids, we've got parents, we've got all these triggers, all these things going on around us. So it's no wonder we're in that, you know, fight or flight mode. And like you say, if cortisol's at its highest in the morning, that probably explains why we're in that kind of state first thing. Is there any tips that you would give just to get through the morning before sort of working alongside the hypnotherapy? Would it be like a breathing technique or?
So I would say a physiological sigh is really helpful. So if you haven't, if you're on the call, you don't know what that is. So you breathe in twice without breathing out, and then you have a really slow out breath. So if you want to do that with me now, you just kind of breathe in halfway, breathe in again, hold it for a second, and then exhale. Really exaggerate the exhale. Just feel like you're kind of deflating all the breath out of you. So I'm going to do 2 more of those. So inhaling halfway, and again, and a really nice long Exhale all the way down. And sometimes it can feel quite nice to
Mm-hmm.
close your eyes on the exhales. Let's just do one more. Inhaling in, topping it up, and exhaling.
Oh, that's nice. Make me feel quite, oh. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even just 3 of those, you know, if you did that when you wake up. The other thing is, if you're a caffeine drinker in the morning, if you can space out to not have your caffeine for the first hour, because that hits the cortisol and makes everything feel worse than it does already. So maybe just have some water or some, I love fennel tea in the morning, but something that hasn't got caffeine in it. And actually get outside. It's easier to do that now. Get outside, get some daylight, and all of that will help rebalance your system in the morning.
I have to say, my dog walk in the morning really does, being out in nature, but I appreciate not everybody could do that if they've got kids to get ready into school. But just, you know, those breathing techniques, I mean, that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, because, you know, just a couple of minutes of doing that kind of thing can make all the difference. And obviously the caffeine as well. I know a lot of the ladies that are in the group have been talking about the fact that they've cut caffeine or cut it down. I'm one of them, to be honest, because I found that was a trigger for my anxiety. So I drink decaf tea. I do have a drink in the afternoon, which is Keiko, and it has got caffeine in. That's kind of like a little afternoon boost. I don't really drink caffeine the rest of the time, and that's really improved a lot of symptoms, actually. So it's things, there's so many things that we're trying to deal with. It's triggering those hormones.
So a couple of things just to kind of follow up on that. I know not everyone can go for a walk in the morning, but even if you just have your morning, you know, drink, or, you know, even put your coat on and just stand outside on the step in the garden, and that even just for 5 minutes, that's better than nothing. And then in respect of the caffeine, certainly if you're aware that it's a trigger, I applaud you and your other lovely ladies in the group about thinking about reducing it, but also think about the timing, because we have different sensitivities to caffeine, but the average half-life of a dose of caffeine is 5 to 6 hours. So 5 to 6 hours after you've had that, you've still got half the dose of caffeine in your system. So if you're finding that your sleep is disrupted, you might want to think about counting back to think about when you have that last caffeinated drink. So that's, you know, just something else to be mindful of as well.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's having that cut off bit. So, is there anything else I wanted to ask? But I think we've covered everything. Anything else, but I mean, obviously this video is going to be within the group. I know people have sort of popped on and off a little bit, so, you know, people have got, you know, plenty of time to catch up with it, and if they've got any questions, they can obviously pop it in there. I will pop some links and things into your website and, you know, bits and pieces that you've got there, so people can listen to your meditations, get in touch if they want some more advice from you, and they can sort of keep an eye on what services are going on. Like you say, you quite often have group things, not just one-to-one, so they can keep an eye on what's coming up, and sort of go from there.
Thank you. If anyone, you know, if anybody's particularly interested in you know, keeping in touch, I have a mailing list, and then I send out a weekly midweek mindful moment. So my intention there is to offer some inspiration to keep us feeling more settled and balanced and able to manage with what the world throws at us. So that's another free resource there. You can subscribe to that. And if you want to reach out with any questions, feel free, you know, to contact me through the details on the website. You're very welcome to just have, you know, questions via email, or if you want to book in for a consultation to talk about something specific to you, that facility is always there too.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great.
That's all right. Thank you for being my first live on Facebook. Thank you. I've never done that before.
We were successful, so that's like, I'm not very good with IT, so I'm quite pleased that we've managed to do this. So and I really do appreciate your time, obviously giving up your time on a Monday evening to come and chat to everybody. So ladies, any questions, feel free to pop a message in the group, or obviously you can contact Melanie directly. I'll pop all her details in the group as well, so you can give her a call, maybe have a consultation, or just simply pop a little message under the video, and I'm sure she will come back to you as soon as she can. So, but good night, everybody. I hope you all sleep well tonight.
Good night.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.